Hello, welcome to this Fire Chief's video message. This message is special. This is our 2020 intent and focus. As you will be seeing through email and station rounds with battalion chief and chief officers, sharing with you all, men and women of MCFRS, what the focus, what we have identified and what I've identified as our focus and intent for 2020. So joining me in studio is Pete. To kick us off. So 2020 is here. We're into February and we're pushing out a bunch of activities, but I got three main things scheduled up. So when you looked at it, what did you think?
Well, I think that these are things that we do each and every day, but again, as you said, you want us to focus and on your intentions, and a lot of it is about customer service. And of course we deal with that each and every day, but you're giving us a couple little things to focus on this year.
Absolutely. So customer service is what our organization is. Every person who calls 911 is a customer. Every resident, citizen, visitor, coworker, all of those folks are customers. And we need to be aware of that, continually remember that, and understand that the focus of our emergency services, the focus of our delivery is for customer service. We do a great job, and we need to understand that customers both external as well as internally. And the means of improving our customer service is being triggered upon by measuring our customer service. Many years ago, we did a customer service survey associated with our EMS transporting. We would do a Scantron form, the EMS section would send it out periodically to people who had been transported, get those back and tabulate that. Now we're going to incorporate that into a part of the billing vendor, and that would be a part of what people see in their statement of services, and allows us to ask those 75,000 or so patients that we've transported how they felt about customer service from the perspective of the patient. Additionally, we're building a opt-in or a general customer service opportunity off the website, off of email signatures, so that at any time somebody wants to provide customer service feedback about anybody within the service, how they had a good interaction, bad interaction, or an interaction with somebody, it's available. So it's a two-pronged process about the customer service, but it needs to be the fact that we need to measure ourselves to then be able to quantify and make steps towards improving the impacts of our customer service. When you look at customer service, what do you see and how do you approach that?
You've kind of outlaid a couple things, and customer service really is about relationships. And I like the way what we've been talking about recently. Those relations are internal, external, and as we'll probably get into it, but a lot of this is data driven. I'm not a data guy, but you are. So a lot of this is about relationships, internally, externally. So I think that's a pretty good thing. It's about service delivery, right. And then we're going to talk about some risks associated with all that.
But before we get off of customer service and we'll talk about managed risk, part of our customer service and improving that internal and external is building and rebuilding and growing trust within the organization. Yeah. And that is a function of three C's: competence, caring, and communications. We need to ensure and build that into each part of exactly that: communications and caring, as well as being competent and effective in how we're discussing, communicating, and approaching this circumstance. Everybody has a huge value to bring to the team, and MCFRS has long been, and fire service has long been described as a family, and is very much a part of that, and we have to very much appreciate what everybody brings to that, add and see the value to that, and then integrate those together. So again, customer service is not just external, not on the call, it's all the time, in the facility, in the station, on the street, at the grocery store, at the pub ed event, and again, rebuilding that trust within the organization and expanding and solidifying that trust with the competence, caring, and communications.
Well, you mentioned those 3 C's, and I think the fact that we're all sitting at the table or have the positions that we have and been hired and trained, we're all pretty competent, I think, at least in my view, of what we do each and every day. The caring, we all have different life's experiences, and I think what we're going to be talking about this year as we go forward is, there's going to be mechanisms there to help us
Right.
demonstrate that caring, and of course the communication is always usually a breakdown of whenever there is an issue or a problem. It usually has something to do with communication. So I think that's important to give people the tools to make sure that we communicate.
And from the competence and executing the basics perfectly, everybody comes to work, everybody comes to their duty night with the intent of having a good day, doing a good job, and nobody intends to have a lack of stellar performance or to have a bad day and to have a mistake. But
Right.
mistakes do happen, but everybody is coming with that competence to perform effectively and well. So again, taking care of that, looking at the 3 C's and ensuring we're reflecting on and being respectful of each other as well as to the folks that we're helping takes another step forward as we focus on customer service.
I think I might be jumping ahead a little bit, but to talk about all those things that we have and always have had, this master plan, strategic plans, and things that our accreditation
Right.
helps us with that process.
There's no doubt that as responsible members of the county government, responsible for the taxpayers' money, we have to be efficient and effective in using the funding that we have as well as the service delivery. So we need to make sure that every dime we spend is a dime well spent, and that we're honoring the intent of the taxpayers, the residents, as well as the executive and the focus there. And as we talk about, and you just highlighted the 5 key components there, we do have the turn the curve agreement, we do have the accreditation standards to cover the master plan, the strategic plan, and the operating budget. Those 5 key pillars of structure all have to be intertwined together and linked up because they were independently made at different times. Budget's made every year. The turn the curve agreement is outcome-based decision making through data driven, like we talked about. That is a core goal of the Elrich and Klein administration. So we have to weave those together, but make sure everybody within the organization understands how those are linked together and how they do play that critical role to support operations and service delivery.
And I'll just throw out a little advertisement for the master plan and the strategic plan. Most of us, at least where the rubber meets the road, don't have to worry about those things. Obviously, they impact us as we go down the road. So I would suggest to take a few minutes when you get a chance for all of us out there, and just kind of look at the master plan. So it kind of shows our vision. The strategic plan is more finite, but affects each and every one of us. Of course,
Right.
each section of the department has a role in that. And there's some pretty good stuff in there. And
Absolutely. So the master plan was a 10-year document. We pared that back to roughly a 6-year document to align with the capital improvement program's 6-year cycle in the county process. And then the strategic plan is done every year with the focus of 1 year. Obviously, the operating budget is just a 12-month period of time. So they are integrated. They are all feeding off of each other or feeding up and supporting each other, and that's the goal. And it is a part of everyone knowing what we're working towards. Another main point of why we're having this video and communicating this out to the organization, so that everyone does know these 3 goals, this 3 focus for the year, and tying these together. Because what is our core value? Operational competence and being able to answer that 911 call with highly trained folks with good equipment, fast and efficient, and meeting their needs. And that comes together by a lot of the parts of the organization working together. If it's operations or it's training or logistics or administration or support, all of those points all support that primary goal of operational competence. And that is, it's time to take a step back, make sure we're always considering that and ensuring that what's supporting operations and the goal of service delivery is what our primary goal is throughout the organization.
And at the end of the day, and the beginning of the day, and all throughout the day, we are public servants, and we're here to respond. Most of our focus people believe that operations, we hang our hat on, that's what it's all about, but there's a lot that leads up to that to provide our service delivery. Of course, the administrative folks and all that support, the department in many different ways, and the shout out to all them. But I think this is part of what these discussions are going to be, to support that administrative function, to better support our operations, which is the biggest component of our department.
Absolutely. And when we talk about operational competence, we realize that this is a risk profession. This is a risky profession. Public safety, fire rescue is a profession that has risk at every step and turn. We already talked about and we've already communicated to the organization that our focus in 2020 for training is managed risk, and that is ongoing. We sent out a communication just last night about EMS COTS and how we have to and did take some very critical steps last night to address a opportunity there that has identified itself by having several COT drops in just a very short period of time. But managed risk is part of 2020. That's going to be training academies activities. Some of our in-service activities will be focused towards managed risk. And we have risk from three primary sources. Operationally, running calls, boots on the ground, that's pretty clear. Everybody identifies that. But then we have both administrative and social risk. Now, how we interact with each other, how we talk, how we our demeanor, and just pure interaction amongst folks is a risk, and that is one that we've addressed over the last several years. We continuously need to address and keep the attentive to that so that we're aware of and not letting ourselves become complacent, become relaxed in the stations and accept risk or accept behaviors that are unacceptable in a workplace, a public space. Additionally, not having completed our administrative activities, being on the ball with our reports, on the ball with our training activities, on the ball with all of the components of being ready through the administrative narrative and the administrative components is a way to address those administrative risk. All of those feed into operational risk, boots on the ground. And there is clearly an acceptability where we know as responders, it's clearly outlined in the IRP, Operational Doctrine Statement, about our risk. And I'm going to jump to that for a quick second to read those words specifically right off of page 5. Will extend calculated risk to save a savable life. Will accept limited risk to save savable property. And then lastly, we will not risk firefighter lives for lives or property that cannot be saved. It's clearly outlined there that when there's a life in jeopardy that's in a savable or potentially savable environment, we're going to do a high-risk search, a high-risk operation to attempt that rescue. But for part of a property that's already unsavable or already to the point where what will the human risk of firefighters, men and women going to that structure, what will they gain to a piece of property that's already beyond a point of saving and returning? That is the core tenets of what we're talking about when it comes to the risk profile operationally. But we must realize that we cannot accept more risk than the circumstances and allow us. We'll never be able to remove all the risk from our environment. But there are many ways by which we can manage that risk, many ways by which we put engineering controls, personal protective equipment, operational guidance in place to help us deal with that. So managed risk is a big focus for 2020.
And I think another way of looking at it is we all take calculated risks throughout the day, whether it be in our family or personal life and at work. It's pretty clearly defined operationally speaking, but You talk about all that we do for community engagement and community outreach and education. There's a lot our community can do for themselves, working smoke alarms, exit plans, things that we help them learn safe and proper practices. Even pedestrian safety, crossing the street safely, and that sort of thing. So there's a lot that goes into this, but a lot of that has to do with our relationships within our shifts, with our coworkers, and certainly with our community.
Absolutely. So as you said, 41 years, smoke alarms being required in the houses, sprinkler systems, many decades now in different phases throughout the county. Those are things that the homeowners control and things that help them be safer in place, manage their risk. Naturally, once the Purvis station alerting goes off, the bell rings, we're responding to a circumstance that has gotten out of control to some point or is beyond the control of that resident. But how we do that, cold responses is a managed risk approach to reducing our risk profile, going to incidences that don't mandate or necessitate that lights and siren response. So there's all these little points that are talking about managed risk. So our third focus for the year is managed risk, and want to really have folks ask questions of their battalion chiefs and their chief officers when they come around to be able to understand what our three focuses are for 2020.
And it's hard to imagine, or most of us don't think of it in this way, but there's managed risk with our budget and the way that we spend money to accomplish things that we need to accomplish. So a lot of analysis, data goes into preparing the budget, along with those things that are social.
There's a managed risk in the studio right now, but it's okay.
That was good time.
It's not an earthquake in Virginia.
I hope not. But that's just another way of looking at it. The managing the budget. There is some risk, obviously, with planning that out. Right. So the planning goes in. And
absolutely. So as we wrap this up, I want everybody to take the opportunity to remember the 3 points: customer relations, efficient and effective service delivery, and then managed risk. So for 2020, that's our focus, that's our intent, what we're aiming our operations and our training activities for, to these ideas, these core tenets, and want everybody to take the opportunity, review the information, have those discussions amongst your shift and station personnel, talk with your chief officer, and understand, go back to those documents like Pete said, off of quick links, fire chief's office, planning section, all of the master plans, strategic plans, accreditation standards, the covers, all right there, as well as the policies and the operational doctrine statement that talks about operational managed risk. So for Pete, thank you for joining me.
Yep.
And I appreciate the time and look forward to having and hearing feedback about the 2020 intent and focus. Take care.